You're listening to Who Agrees with me, Kendra McPherson.
And me, Paul Black.
And once again, a huge thank you to Iola for making us look like we've had a glow up every week.
Thank you, Iola, for keeping us specky and gorgeous. If you want to grab a pair, head to the link in our bio. So this week we have a very iconic guest that we're very excited about, and it is a great episode. So much so that we've decided to split into 2 parts because there was so much to cover.
So if you can't bear to wait till next Wednesday, then you can head over to our Patreon now, and part 2 is up and ready to rock.
Yes, enjoy the episode.
Enjoy.
Hello, so today on the podcast we are joined by the national treasure, the queen of the kings, the Mount Vernon Meryl Streep. It's ELAINE C. Smith!
That's more like it, the Mount Vernon Meryl Streep.
Do you like that one?
That rolls off the tongue.
Totally, I'm keeping that.
It's good. I thought, has that been said before? No.
Oh,
Good.
That is good.
I do like that. I do. I find the whole national treasure thing really freaky.
Right, I'll take that out.
Although, no, I like it. But the other day, somebody told me that they'd said, they were talking about who was a star in Scotland or something like that, and they said ELAINE C. Smith. But she's not a star. And I thought, do you know the irony of all of that? And they were sort of defending, going, but she sells it everywhere, blah blah blah. She's just been around a long time. And I thought, the irony is, I'm the person that doesn't think I'm a star. I mean, I don't, that sounds, very modern. I honestly do not regard myself as that. I just regard myself as an actor that a lot of people know in Scotland. So I'm not wandering
But what
around
constitutes
diva-like.
a star?
I
if
was
not
just
that?
about to say that.
Well, you tell me.
Well, what I will say constitutes a star is someone who has these shoes on.
Those
us the
shoes.
And anyone that's listening just on audio is missing out on these bedazzled shoes that ELAINE's wearing.
It's a sort of Swarovski version.
Funny to see you said like that.
A Swarovski
You look a little
version.
shorter than I ever
Yes,
picture you.
I am, Well, brothel creepers, really, but I saw them and I thought, they'll be a nice wee winter shoe.
How on earth could someone say you were not a star when you have those on? That's
And
what I
you
would
called
say.
them earlier, just before we started recording, you called them your showbiz shoes.
Showbiz shoes.
And if you can't get up in the morning and put on your showbiz shoes, what can you do?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Not quite blue suede, but showbiz shoes.
Put on my showbiz shoes and... Is that how it goes? Aye.
Keep going.
Sorry,
No,
you
give
can
us the
sing.
full number,
No,
come
no,
on.
no, no. It's that you're the singer, not me.
I do think that it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because when you hear people regard you in a certain way, you should step into that and accept that, you know what I mean, and not rebut it. But also, I get what you mean. It's tricky giving yourself titles, but you should accept
But
the title.
you don't. It was never within the sort of realms of possibility for me. And also, I have a husband and kids that keep me very much on the ground. My daughters particularly love me getting slagged on social media. They think that's fantastic. They think it's hilarious. So I've never, it's that Glasgow thing, I've never got above myself. I'm not saying I'm no a pain in the arse sometimes.
Aye.
or that.
That wasn't an agreeing either.
No, that wasn't agreeing a bit too much. No, or
Nodding sagely over there.
Of course,
exactly. Or that and at times I could be diva-like. In the sense of wanting to get things right, if I'm doing my own show or something, you want to do it, and that can sound to other people as if, oh God, she's tough. Of course, a man would be seen.
Well,
as,
this is what I was just about to say, because you use the word diva there,
Yeah.
which obviously does get thrown about when it's a woman in a certain, place or status. But is that not just being assertive or just being sure of yourself? Because it's tricky, because you could try and maybe be a bit more humble, quote unquote, and then maybe not have things done the way you would want them to do. You do need to assert yourself as a
you're
woman.
right. I
to
did
have
that
some
for
sort
years.
Of,
I did that for years. I did the please like me. Please, I don't want to cause offence. I don't want to go in. And would that be okay? Is this all right? Would that be very, not the worst traits, but that wanting to be liked as a woman and not cause too much problems or be seen that way. And the most diva-like behaviour I've ever seen.
Yeah, tell us.
In 50 years, can't name names, but I would say that 95% of it has been men.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
would never
of
be
course.
branded that way.
Never
It
be
would
branded.
packaged
They'd
that
be,
way.
he knows his stuff.
Yeah, or
He
like
knows what he's doing.
he's a bit of an aloof character, or he's a bit
Yeah,
of a
yeah.
Tricky.
he's tricky, but he's just so good at what he does. It's like
Yeah.
it almost goes, oh, let's excuse that behaviour because they're talented, but the same doesn't apply to a woman. And I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Where you witnessed that behaviour, it was on the set of a film called Govern Fair Queen. The director
we're
was a
talking.
maniac.
Now we get
I'm
to
not
the
gonna name any
nub of
names.
the story. I know. I have to say, I never witnessed any of that diva-like behaviour from you on the set of Government.
Thank you. Set that up nicely.
As director or writer of said piece,
you.
and as you know, you were very, very funny in the scene that you were in, and you cut it. I couldn't
You need
believe
to
that.
I heard
stop
about
saying
this.
because I don't want people to know that.
Why?
Right. Well, no, I've
You
said it many
Release
times.
the footage.
People don't know. I was in the film, but it was kind of purely because I think initially they were a bit like, why are you know in it? You're a performer. And I was like, but
But you should release that wee scene, just
Release
as a
the
wee
tapes.
scene.
Yeah, right.
No, it's just
Did you enjoy it?
Oh.
It was a lot of pressure acting in front of actors and yourself, you know,
Well,
because
I get that.
the scene. But the scene when we shot that scene, it was in part of the scene where every member of cast is there.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah.
I was trying to be very casual about it, but it was quite
very
intense.
funny.
But I did say to you a few times when you would like really nail a take on that film, and I'd go, do you know, I really think you've got a future in acting.
I know, but sadly, nothing's come of it.
No, no offers.
Not one
the
offer.
undiscovered ELAINE C. Smith.
Somebody
well,
hear a
podcast
joke.
will
But,
catapult you to
but I
fame,
love
Elaine.
it. When BBC put out something, you see people go, have they not got any other actors? Did you see those comments? And I actually don't do Facebook or any of that stuff. It's just, I'm too old. Social media, I have someone who looks at it for me. So if anything important comes in or whatever, but because that was the BBC had put it out and it was on my husband's Facebook, I saw that, as I know him there, so I thought, wait a minute. Where am I in every film that's been released in Scotland, or it's the same people? And I thought, this is a new director, a new writer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's never done stuff before. All these young stand-ups, so people that were involved, all that. They were, you might have me there, but that was not because the film wasn't made because of me.
Aye.
And if
Do you know?
anything, I think that's a nice forward-thinking way of fusing classic figures or people or faces with
Yeah.
new, fresh talent and ideas. To me, that's kind of what you want to do. You want to mix everything in to get the best out of it. I think that's a nice direction to
you
go
watch
in.
Bridget Jones or something like that, and you do see the London repertory company of film actors. So you do go, oh. So I get that people would go, God, is she in heaven? You're like, well, actually, no, I'm not in that. And there was somebody else about me being, she was very like Christine in Two Doors Down. I was like, well, she's a Glasgow granny from Govan. What do you want me suddenly to be speaking like this?
Yeah, I know.
That I'm actually from Besthead in Govan Fair Queen. Wouldn't that be marvellous? You're like, what? It's that where we are.
People
We'll
just
probably
want to
talk
pass
about-
comment though, don't
know.
they?
But see
Like-
the thing with internet, because we were going to ask about that as well, because I know you'd mentioned that before, you don't really do it, but sometimes some of them are belters. See when you see a comment, like for our friends, we said this with one of our guests before, but like sometimes when you see a comment and you go, I can't argue with them, that's hilarious. Like a horrible comment. Sometimes you get ones that are just belters.
Well, they're the ones my daughters love.
Aye.
I love that. I love the fact that, and I've actually put it in when I did my show 65 at the Kings for the Comedy Festival. I'd put that in because they'd put it all out and it sold out really quickly, which was great. And because I was like, I'm not relevant anymore.
Have you felt that way before?
Oh, totally. I was like, to be persuaded, and Hannah, my daughter, was going, Mum, and I was like, no. I said, my audience are too old. Don't open the gods, they'll not get up there and all that sort of stuff. And so I genuinely, it sold out in 4 hours or something like that. And I was like, oh, I actually, the best comment for a woman is I come out and she went, your tickets are too cheap. Who's ever said that?
That's good.
Who's ever
Actually,
said
Kendra,
that?
you've said that before.
What about your tickets?
No, you said that about 50 Cent.
Yeah, I
You said, I wish I paid more to see him. That's the ultimate compliment.
That is.
It's the ultimate compliment. I'm
So
glad
you
you
were
got that.
on there, me
The
and
same
50
comments
Cent,
I've
that's it. She was like, and I went, I just didn't want, as they would say, to rip the arse out of it. I just thought, let's see what happens. Anyway, a flat fee, blah, blah. But there were, people coming on apparently, and it was Hannah, my daughter, who had seen it on the comedy festival thing, people tagging each other, right, Margaret, we'll need to go to this, and blah, 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 blah. And of course, because of Two Doors Down, I have now got an even bigger gay male following
Nice.
because of Christine.
Hello.
Hello. So there's rows of, which is fantastic. I just adored that. And that's what my sister said. They were looking around, a whole new generation were there in the audience. Anyway, but Hannah said this was the best one. She screenshotted it and sent it to my other daughter, Katie. And it was somebody coming on going, no, no going to that. No going to that. Mine that time she was a cow to me in boots.
That's good.
Which,
I was laughing enough at it just being, no, I'm not going to that.
As if
'cause
you
who asked?
personally asked.
because our pal had tagged it or just no, I'm not going to that. Mine that time she was a cow to me in boots.
Are you
So,
regularly a cow in boots?
Of course. No, I mean 99% of the time you try and be nice. So I used it on the stage. I just said,
good.
people do this, and I said, somebody had done this, and I said, listen, if you're in here the night and I was a cow to you in boots, I'm really sorry. I said, but maybe you were a cow to me.
Yes,
And people
true.
forget how rude they can be, how not many people, but enough people coming up and just rude. They don't know you might be ill, you might be Russian, you've got Wayne's for you, all that sort of stuff happens. But there was another one which I used, which is my favourite from that time as well, because somebody else later on came on and went, nah, she's a good actress, but she's still an old boot.
Compliment.
Two things can be true at once.
Two things can be true at once. So I made the gag that I said, so I walked into my husband and he said, would you get off my Facebook?
Boom, boom.
Hey, hang on. I'm here all week. But there's a way of just that's the only way. And we might get into that at some point, but in the times that we are living in, the only way is humour. And you see how people like Trump or Putin or anything like that, Putin hates Zelensky more than anything because he was a television comic. He was a television stand-up.
I didn't know that
He was
either.
huge in Russia. He was
You have to be funny to turn up. Remember when he turned up to the meeting and he had the tracksuit
Yeah.
on?
Oh,
That
yeah.
was humorous.
He's got
That
an end
was
of humour.
humorous. You're right. Maybe
Yeah.
he's bringing a little bit of that in.
I think he was trying at that point to be respectful to the soldiers in the field at home.
Yeah, by
and
lot,
be
yeah.
part of that. And you're sitting with the orange guy with the red tie sitting there giving you a round. You're like, hey,
Aye.
you got a mirror in your house,
I know
But
he's missing the humour in it all.
Yeah.
By
totally
aye.
a humour bypass.
Aye.
The whole stuff,
humour
the whole Jimmy Kimmel stuff,
aye.
the way they're doing that. But it's interesting that Putin hated Zelensky because Zelensky only became president because his TV show on the Saturday night with this team of comedy performers was so popular.
I cannot believe I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
I did
and
not know that.
Zelensky produced it as well. Eventually, had it, so he's really powerful. And everybody said, and he used to do a sort of piss take of the president of Ukraine or whatever, and that's how he became. People kept saying, "Going to stand for president."
Well, look, there's a future out there for
Darling.
us. Who knows?
I've
First
been,
Minister
I've been
times.
asked.
But you know what? Because
I've been asked.
that thing of people like personalities running for in
Yeah.
politics has become so. It's always kind of been a thing. But it's obviously since Trump it's become more popular. So who knows? Elaine First Minister. No, too much.
No,
no,
that's
just like
not
some
gonna happen.
no. Okay, good. I'm
in
glad.
my political life and that part, I've always been involved in politics right from I was a young, a teenager, and then at drama school and involved in the student union stuff, and all the way through teaching and all the way. I've always been involved in politics through the indie ref, everything. But I'm not a celebrity who's decided, or I don't feel like a celebrity either, but someone in the public eye who picks up, I'll do that because it'll make me look good. No. If I hadn't been an actor, I probably would be in politics.
I was actually going to ask you that because I know that you were a teacher before and stuff. What did you teach?
I taught drama in a high school in Edinburgh, Firhill High. Shout out to Firhill, and taught there for 3 years.
Because I was going to say, if you hadn't went down this path, do you think you would have stuck at teaching? Or is there anything else that in another planet you would be like, there was no rules or anything? What would you be like? What would you want to be?
Well, I suppose singing was the first thing. I was always a bit of a performer, but actually to be a half decent teacher, you have to be a bit of a performer anyway.
That's so true.
And I knew if I could entertain 2C on a Thursday at 3:00, then I could entertain the King's Theatre.
I've said this to you before, but see now being an adult, right? I now realise, thinking back to secondary school and stuff, I'm like, I thought that your teacher was a teacher. That was their role. You didn't really look at them as a person,
as a human with a life.
And now that I'm 30 years old, I'm like, well, I probably had people like me, teaching me and stuff, and it is a bit of a facade. You're like, they do probably have to put a bit of a mask on and be like, right, this is my role today. I need to like enforce this so that you get respect and you entertain.
That's 22.
I was 22.
Think about that.
Teaching in a high school.
Teachers out straight out of uni are 22. That's nuts.
Yeah, and I was teaching. I'd done my postgrad at Murray House. I was teaching in Firhill in Edinburgh, and my 6 years were 17.
That's crazy. Wild.
So you're aware. You have to sort of you wear a sort of cloak of. And I'm never going to be one of the teachers that shouts at kids and all that. I was always the kids side, and then of course a year in, I'm like, walk on the left, shout at them. What's that? You look, move, all that.
Yeah.
You suddenly have a sort of teacher voice in there.
Well, for us, both drama in high school was very significant,
pivotal,
formative for us, and we both bonded early in our friendship when we met, like at a party, about being obsessed with the Crucible and just doing. I was at a party once in Kendra, I didn't know, was just across the way doing a monologue from the Crucible. Like
Point of Reckoning.
And I just
Anyone
thought,
familiar?
Who's that? I must go and meet her. But did you have something that you loved teaching at that to pupils?
Did the Crucible?
Did the Crucible, yeah.
I loved. There were lots of things, but I used to do like musicals. There's a great musical for kids called The Dracula Spectacular.
That sounds good.
Which was great fun. That was a sort of good one for the kids to do. And I loved voice and movement programs, which sounds really, it sounds really a bit up itself. But that the kids themselves would develop the whole program. So like good 3rd, 4th year kids, that would mean you could link up with the English department and you would do poems about war. Or poems about whether it be Wilfred Owen or whatever, but you'd also have movement in there, like just stuff like the kids being inventive. And I remember one I did which was about war, and I was really proud of that because they did this movement thing where they eventually became in the shape of a tank.
I need to be doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Day. That would be good for your
But it
soul.
is because it's like you just, as an adult, unless you're in the creative industries, or even if you are, like you just don't get those opportunities to just like bring those ideas to life or just be part. It's like, I think with stuff like that, it's really coming into your body and not being embarrassed.
That was the most important thing.
Absolutely. It was just like you didn't care.
But in school, it's because you were embarrassed because it was embarrassing to do drama, but particularly for a boy, I would say.
Yeah, for me, maybe for you.
But I was just like, I know I love this. But
Did you do drama exams?
Yes, I did. I did higher drama, so I did it to the end.
My daughters both did as well. But when I started teaching, there was no higher and there was no O grade. We were one of the first schools in Scotland in Firhill. We introduced CSE and O-level drama from England. So because we realised we weren't getting the academic kids, because you were, and no offence to non-academic kids, but you weren't getting the kids who actually were really good at English or other things. They weren't opting to do drama because they weren't getting a qualification in it. So it was seen as just sort of pissing about a bit.
But to me, they were really one of the same, because you were writing it, like when I did higher, you're writing essays on the text that you're performing. Like there was loads of elements of it. Like it's probably one of the subjects that I remember the most terminology and content from, because you were acting it and then going and writing critical essays and stuff on it. Honestly, I loved it. I feel like if if I could go back and do another like job, it would be probably a drama teacher or something like that. Because I just think
it's wonderful.
But what made you then? Where was the jump off point where you were like, I'm not going to do teaching anymore. I'm going to like give myself over to actually, you know, being creative and being on the stage and doing these things, not teaching it to others.
Well, it's that thing of, you know, I was from a working class background. So therefore, being a drama teacher was seen as possible. Being a singer in clubs or whatever, that was seen as possible. Being an actor. And even though I'd gone to the Conservatoire, but the Royal Academy and everything, I was 17 and 3 weeks when I started that. And I always say to people, if you're going to go to drama school, wait a couple of years.
Oh, really?
Go out into the real world. Don't do it. I was at sea. I was particularly from a comprehensive school going in there. The language they were speaking, the language they were using. You know, we were studying Greek drama, and I didn't even know there was Greek drama. You know, so there was a sort of classical part of your education that was missing, and so you were constantly playing catch up with what other people knew or what they were trying to teach. I'd done Hamlet at school, but you know, bored rigid with everybody else in the English class reading it. There was no drama department. I did Gilbert and Sullivan musicals at school and all of that, and I couldn't work out where. There was just no route, is basically
I feel
it.
like the jump, I even noticed that when I was younger, like when I moved from Fife to go to Glasgow Uni, I did English literature, and I was like really confident with that at school and really felt like kind of cock and walk with that, to be honest. And then when I got to uni, I was like, the jump here is so large, I don't even know where to start. It took me to about third year to feel actually like I know my place here, I know what I'm up to.
I deserve to be here.
It just felt to me like, how does everybody else know what's going on and I don't?
I think there is, and still is sadly, a barrier for working class kids coming into the industry, maybe even worse. But when I was at drama school, I never did anything in my own accent. All the plays had to be received pronunciation or American or black. No, that's great. That's part of your skill set. But actually, that constantly feeling that you going home and you didn't speak like people at drama school. Remember that first year, you know, you were going home and suddenly looking at your own family and thinking, I live in a council house in Motherwell, and there's girls in my class who've, you know, there was one girl in my year who went home, yes, we always dress for dinner. What? You know? And the family, she lived in some big West End house or whatever, and she'd been away at a Swiss finishing school, and I didn't even know these things existed. So the route for in education and all of that is really difficult. But once I was teaching, I did feel, oh, this is where I belong. I never thought for a minute I could probably be an actor. But I kept singing during that with bands and pubs in Glasgow and all that. And then I did my postgrad in Edinburgh. And while I was there, I was sharing a flat with some Americans who were really into drama. They were at Edinburgh Uni. And so I joined Edinburgh University Theatre Company. And again, the door opened because actually acting-wise, I was way ahead of, and a lot of the plays were in American. I did Rhymers of Eldritch, I did Sexual Perversity in Chicago, and you got nominated for awards for that in the Student Drama Festival. And the best thing was we were in Southampton and there was a sort of talk after it. And somebody in the audience, this American guy, said, I'm just interested, how many of the cast are American? And I put my hand up, I went, I'm not. And he went, you were the only one I was convinced was American. Really? And there were 2 Americans in the company as well.
You out-Americaned them.
Out-Americaned them. Like they were for the Midwest or somewhere like. So did that. And then Bartholomew Fair, Ben Johnson I did as well. So I was acting with Edinburgh Uni Company while I was teaching.
Right.
I kept my horn in, as they say.
You always
You
kept
kind of
it.
have to, though, don't you? Because it's risky.
And I thought maybe that's a way to do it, maybe that. And then it was during that time, an American friend who was then head of, I think, Kirkcaldy College.
Kendra's place of birth.
It's
Oh,
true.
there you are. Lynn Baines, who ran Kirkcaldy and then went on to run
Ran
Old
the
Town.
full
The whole of Kirkcaldy. Just the drug runs. No. She ran, you know, the drama school. Ewan McGregor went there and all of that. And and then she took over as head at Queen Margaret in Edinburgh, acting. And she was amazing. And she said to me one day, "You got to do this. You got to chutzpah. You know, you got to go in." And I was like, "What's that?"
Chutzpah.
Chutzpah. You've got the thing.
Oh.
You know?
Right, nice.
I like that. We're going to add that to the
Chutzpah.
vocabulary, yeah.
And it's a real old New York Jewish thing. And I suppose I also, when I was at drama school, had felt out a fish out of water, went to the Citizens one night and saw 784 Theatre Company do Out of Our Heads, which was a show about alcoholism, and it was done in Glasgow. It was a brilliant band, Dave Anderson, tennis and all that. And I remember sitting there going, I could do that. Mm-hmm. I could do that because I played keyboards, or not very well, but I could play piano and I sung and I could act, and it was political.
Yeah.
It was saying something.
You smerged everything you care about and are interested
Everything
in.
in that.
But
I wrote to them, and that was what made me take the leap.
So would you say you were quite proactive? Like when you saw
Had to
something,
be.
you wanted to go after it?
I just knew, I just had, and I was doing my dissertation at uni on 784 Theatre Company. And that was one of the reasons I went. They had done The Cheevy, the Stag and the Black Oil, which was a seminal piece, which I saw on the telly. I never, because I didn't really go to the theatre until I went to drama school. And then it was then going, oh no, I could do that. How do I do that? And I was teaching, and I saw, somebody told me that they were auditioning, and I wrote to Dave McLennan at Wildcat, and he met me in the Cafe Royal in Edinburgh, and we went for, he said, I think you'd be perfect, and we went. And I didn't realise, of course, Dave McLennan was tone deaf, he couldn't sing. So all the band were going, oh no, who's he brought now? And I went down and I auditioned. And they couldn't use me, but John McGrath of 784 at the time, who was the artistic director, they were doing a series of plays called Clyde Built. And I got in the first play. And I gave up teaching. I gave it up for a 7-week contract because I just knew. I can't.
I was going to
can't
say, like, how did you decide, like, this is worth? I suppose it's just, you just have to take the risk, don't you? Like, you don't know for sure.
I think that is actually taking that as like as a commitment, and more than just the time frame. Like, you've got 7 weeks contract, but because you're in that mindset of like, well, this just has to work. I think it inspires everything you do. And I think it was interesting going back to what you said about like when you seen theatre, you were like, I could do that. And that, I think, see, when you're like come from a working class background, like we do, and we it feels almost like people think, right, yeah, we get it. You're constantly going on about it. Yeah, you grew up working class, blah blah. We get it, but it'll never like really. People will never truly understand how much it does affect absolutely everything in terms of most industries,
because
but
you're
particularly
naturally
arts.
risk averse, because you're constantly thinking about, well, why should I go and embark on this? Like, it looks a bit kind of
Who am I?
fanciful, blah blah blah. When I
also,
should be
who do
paying
I
my bills.
Who do I know that's done this before, and who
yeah.
is like, if you can't see it, you don't know you can do it, and that's the thing.
It's always been my thing of, I feel like I'm leaving a trail of sweeties. You know, for young women performers particularly coming up and going, no, you can do it this way, because there was no route for me. And I've donated a prize to New College Lanarkshire, which is, I'm from Lanarkshire, from outside Motherwell, and it's that college is fantastic, and they're doing a BA now in drama, and it's on the site of the old Ravenscraig where I sort of grew up. I've given a prize that has got to go to a young woman in comedy, and I've done the same at the Conservatoire.
Yeah, so you're actually
that.
you're making
and a
inroads.
Lacey Smith Award. They can take money out, that doesn't matter. But just to go, come on, and if all it does is, it's not loads of money, but if all it does is mean you can get a couple of train fares down to London for auditions or whatever, it all helps.
But this also feeds back to being the mentality of being working classes. You're not pulling the ladder up behind you, and you know how difficult it was for you to get to that point. You want other people to be able to do it, and you want to get as many people. And and it's as well because we have such a kind of individualist society now, where it's like you just focus on what you can do, focus on your career, get it going. But like any opportunity you get, I notice particularly working class creative people, it's like I want to have as many people I know.
It has to be collaborative, I think. Like, that's
got to have
really
access,
big,
because, and the problem was when I came into the business here in Scotland, there were so few opportunities for women. that the women were pitted against each other. You know, I saw the wonderful Dorothy Paul yesterday. I went out to see her, and we were having a discussion about the fact that for a long, long time we were pitted against each other. Yet she was one of my heroes. You know, she's a big heroine of mine, and what she did and how funny she was. I learnt more being on stage with Dorothy Paul than I learnt years in drama school. I'd never seen anybody be able to time a gag the way she could, and also the confidence of it, the confidence to stand and wait. And I watch young performers all the time, and I watch out, wait. There's 3 laughs there. You're only getting 1. And that was what I learned. It's an old sort of thing but it's confidence. And young actors will have a funny line, but they'll rush it and they'll do the line. It'll get a laugh, and they'll come in halfway through the laugh and not hear where the laugh's going,
Power
and
of
coming
the
round
pause.
and
Yes.
not doing it.
But
And
that's
go,
a hard
wait.
thing. I think that as soon as
it's really hard.
when I watch some stand-ups like Amanda Dwyer, who was in Govan Fair Queen,
Yeah.
I love watching her stand-up, and I always say this to her, it really changed the way I think about being on stage, because when I go on stage I often think, right, if they don't laugh within 5 seconds, I'm done for here. I need to get the first joke out, I need to get it going. She's totally awkward. She has this kind of like
Brilliant.
makes people uncomfortable, and she can sit for like 10 minutes and then it's so worth it because you get to the laugh and it pays off. And I was like, your ability to sit on stage and the awkwardness, or not even awkward, the silence,
But it's the belief in yourself
yeah.
to be able to do
Aye.
that, and to have the confidence to do it. But I understand why, you know, and someone told me, someone who's very, very good performer, doing, she wouldn't mind me telling this, Doon McKagan, who was in Smack the Pony and all of that, you know, the all-women sketch show.
Yeah.
And that she had gone with an idea, was after the success of that, and she'd gone to some producer in the BBC and with this idea for another sitcom, blah, blah, blah. And he turned around and pointed to a picture of French and Saunders behind him and said, but we've got our ladies.
it's not shocking at all.
And she was like,
that.
but there's room for us all. You don't turn around at Paul Whitehouse and go, no, we've got Steve Coogan, we don't need you.
Aye.
You
It
know,
would never be viewed like
it
that.
would just be
We've got her.
afforded. We've got our girls or our women, or I'm probably misquoting her, but along those lines, and you just think, that's what you're up against there. That
and it's hard to keep going through it and
Yeah.
not just think like, oh well, what's the point, because I
Yeah.
know what I'm up against. And I
Or
think
even
for
feel
this-
like when you do get those like I think it's like a younger maybe comic or like female creative or whatever, maybe if you're less established, that when you do get those opportunities, there's that voice in your head that's like, well, this is probably tokenistic or a bit of a box ticking exercise.
take it.
It's
yeah, I was going to say that to everyone. Take all the credit.
Take the box ticking, because the box ticking didn't even exist.
Yeah.
You know,
True,
many
yeah.
years ago. And even if it is, but the woman, you do then have to go in and work 3 times harder than the men who will go in there. There is a real, still a difficulty in that, and I can see it that they go, but we've got ELAINE C. Smith.
Yeah,
We
but
don't
that's
need
covered.
another woman
Aye.
in panel. It's one of the things with pantomime, but we've covered that. No, you haven't, because look at Edinburgh. There's still 4 guys doing that, and there's
Aye.
still guys in Aberdeen. Look at the Palladium. It's great that now Dawn French has gone in, and Catherine Tate's doing the Palladium this year, and so other people, and that's because of Julian Clary is bringing a different sort of audience in there too, a more alternative audience, if you like. Oh, that's such an old word, that, but for me, it's I look and go, Louise McCarthy, she's really funny. Hannah Jarrett Scott, I saw her and got her. So she's looking round and saying to younger women, no, come on.
Yeah.
And it's not because a lot of times the drawbridge was taken up as soon as I was very Thatcherite, that you don't help other women.
Yeah.
That, well, I'm here.
because it'll come at a cost to you, so why would you?
I might lose that job. It's a climate of fear. And I realise that, I probably did have that, about contemporaries that I didn't particularly like, or I think I've worked a lot harder than them, and why are they, And then I thought, I don't want to be that person.
But also, I think that comes as well with a bit more experience and age and stuff,
Yeah.
because
Old
you
age.
then start to no, but like even
That's
myself, like,
old
I'm
age.
30, and I think that my perspective on things and the way that you collaborate with people or whatever has got better, because I see things from the viewpoint of we can make this better if we
Yeah.
do this together. It's not me or you. You
I
know,
think it's
the
also-
opportunity doesn't disappear for me just as
Yeah.
that person gets it. It'll
Absolutely.
move along and it'll be holistic and it'll
There's
work
room
better.
for all of us.
Exactly like
There's
that.
room for
But
all
that
of
does
us.
take time, and it doesn't mean that you're an unkind person for not having that perspective as a woman earlier on, because that's what's drilled into you. So you have to unlearn and unpick all that stuff before you can
Really difficult.
share and feel, open to other people coming into that space and
You're
everyone being there
absolutely
together.
right. And the generation of women ahead of me were genuinely terrified of the women coming up behind them. And I could never understand what that was, why you terrified. But I remember a feeling of, at one point, I think it was after Nesbitt or something like that. And I was relatively well established and everything. And Chewing the Fat came along, and Karen Bar and all of that, and all the hype around that, and all the hype, and I was like, oh, is that it gone? I remember somebody interviewing me, or interviewing Karen. Are you the new Elaine C. Smith? Well, no, she's not. And I thought, I'm not going to get into this. So when I didn't do the King's Panto for quite a while, a few years, I was off doing Calendar Girls. I said, what about Karen Bar? Because I did not want to be that woman. I did not want to be sitting there going, nah, I don't. Whether you think they're the funniest or the best people, give them a chance.
And it's because it's exactly how you described it there, is that it's everybody else creating the narrative around it, not the actual
That
people
feeds
that's
into
involved
your
in.
behaviour, and then
Yeah.
it's like creating that inhospitable environment in a space. I always find that funny about comedy and stuff. It's like we're supposed to be having a laugh.
Aye.
Yeah.
We're
It's
all
not that
here
serious.
because we have
No,
that.
comedies are very serious.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
but
is.
that's what's
It
so
is.
funny. It's like
Yeah.
we're all here because we're humorous, or because we see those glints and things, or those moments in life that maybe shouldn't be funny, but they are. So why
Aye.
are we now all
And
getting
let's
dead
just-
militant and strategic?
Aye, let's remember why we're all here.
Yeah.
So we have to talk about, of course, the iconic Christine in Two Doors Down. What I think is very interesting about Christine is that I think that's definitely has created a full new generation of fans who maybe weren't familiar with a younger generation of who they didn't know Rabsine is, but they didn't know
Yep.
Mary Doll, and for them they're like, who's this woman? She's brilliant. and how did that kind of feel? Well, talk us about the start of Two Doors
Right.
Down.
Well, I'm more surprised now when people ask about Nesbitt than I am, because it's Two Doors Down's the big thing, and Christine seems to have just become a favourite. It's just it is a generational thing, I think. But what I love is the amount of people that say, "Do you know my auntie? Do you know my granny?" Because she is so like, and that was what was joyous about it. But I saw the pilot of, apparently, they had done an avail. It all started by accident. The whole thing. There was another program that was scheduled to be made for New Year on the network for BBC One, and it fell through. Something happened. The star, I don't know who it was, and they were scrabbling around. And Gregor Sharp, one of the writers, was by that point working as a commissioner in BBC, and he sort of went, well, we've got this script here if you want, I don't know whether it's any good, but it is actually about New Year, and so they and then they sort of went, yeah, and then cast it really quick, just did an availability thing. And apparently they'd done an availability on me for Beth to be Alex Norton's wife, the two of us, and I adore Alex Norton anyway, so that would be fun. But I was in Panto in Aberdeen, so not available because it was all done really quickly. And people like Alec and Johnny Watson and Arabella and Doon and that original cast for the pilot episode that went out. And my husband said to me, "Oh, that thing, Alex and Johnny's," and he said, "I watched it. It was really good. It was quite fresh, different for for BBC." And I said, "Of course, in true actor style, I don't want to hear that. In true actor bitterness, I'm like that." Oh, was it?
The ego came out.
Well, good. I'm happy for them, you know, but you're not.
Regretted teeth.
Through gritted teeth. I'm happy, that's good. But then I can't remember why, but I ended up watching the pilot a couple of months later and thinking, oh, that's very funny. It's very good. Gems of great ideas in it and fresh and all that. About a year or so later, I saw, because it wasn't commissioned straight away, there was an article in one of the papers about this Two Doors Down, people had liked it, and it was going to a series. So I said to my agent, you know, listen, if anything ever comes up in that, I'd be, you know, put me up. You know, other things like Still Game and all of that. Not that they ever wanted me, I'm sure, but I was like, no, I did Nesbitt. I'm not right. You know, it's other people's turn. It's too, and happy for everybody to be so successful to go well. But that was one of the first times I went, if anything comes up in that, and I'm thinking one episode. You know,
Aye.
woman at bus stop. Do a wee,
My dream role.
my dream role.
Me every day.
Cleaner in pub or whatever. That I would do a wee cameo or something like that in it. And didn't think. And then I was asked to come in and meet Steve Carney, it was then, and Gregor Sharp. And I thought I was going in for one episode. And the next thing I knew, they came to, I was doing my live show at the Assembly Rooms in Edinburgh, and the producer and a whole team of people came to see the live show and were really nice. And then they said, oh no, it's written. And I found out later on that they had this whole role for me, that they wanted me to be in it. That was one of the things. And they had written Sharon, the gorgeous Sharon Rooney's mum, because they thought that would be a good pairing between us. And so I realised that it was weird. I was touring and everything, but when they were filming, the 6-7 weeks was exactly when I was off.
I was just about to say, all of that sounds like it aligned in a really
was-
unexpected but perfect way.
So
like
weird.
it was paved
Yeah.
the way it should have been. Yeah.
And so I was able to do it and go in. And don't get me wrong, it was really, really hard shoot, really hard style, because that feeling of being in the living room with everybody is, as you know, if you're in television, that takes forever. So
A lot of people, a lot of lines, and multi-camera setup. That's it is
not
quite,
even multi-camera.
Is it not?
No, it's two.
Oh,
So everything's a separate setup. Two cameras at one end for the master,
Yeah.
two cameras at the other. Then you've got to shoot it all the other way. Then you've got a 3-shot, then you've got a 2-shot, then you've got everybody with singles. You get 8 people in a scene, in a 13-page scene. I used to sit there going, this feels like a 3-week run at the Tron.
aye,
I was
that's
going to
Because it
say, do
did.
you actually find that more grueling than doing like loads of like long?
Mind
I
numbing.
remember what you said to me when we were on set once, and you just went, I hate filming.
It was Laura. It was Laura. We were sitting there. We were in your mother's living
Oh,
room,
yeah.
sitting there, and I just looked and I went, I hate bloody filming. As they were setting up just another shot and everything. Hey, yours was a scoosh
Oh.
compared to the but that's why you get every reaction. So if everybody in the scene gets a close up, gets a 2-shot close. If you were filming us now and it was for Two Doors Down, we'd have 2 cameras there, then we'd have all our singles, then they'd do 2 shots, then they'd do 2. So that every reaction of yours, every Christine raising her eyebrow going, that's in.
Yeah.
Because it's shot for the edit.
Yeah.
But I mean, for listeners, they're probably going, how boring is that? It is really boring. It's fun. and see, when you do it at 8:30 in the morning, when you do the first scene, we're all pissing ourselves laughing. It's hilarious.
Aye.
And I
20th take, it's
see at 6 o'clock. I'm like that. I don't know whether it's New Year or New York.
Aye.
You're like that because you've said the line so many times. So
is.
it was a real sort of pedantic, precise process. But when you saw the end product, it worked. And also it was a slow burn. You know, there was lots of people say to me, how much the first thing, not that keen. It didn't sort of arrive, and then it built. I mean, it's like 41 million or something on iPlayer.
Wow.
People watch 2 episodes, they come up going, we watch 2 episodes before we go to sleep every night. And maybe it's a familiarity or something. You know the characters, you know what's coming. And it was during COVID I noticed the difference. I was out in my government walk, and folk would be shouting across the street, oh, that's keep us going, Natalie, you know. And I was thinking, oh, an audience are watching this that weren't watching it before.
I think it goes to say that like sitcoms need time to grow.
Yes.
Like that's the thing.
Yeah,
it always
yeah.
like think how many shows like This Country, right?
Yeah.
People discovered that on its final season. What was the American one? No, Canadian one.
Schitt's Creek.
Schitt's
That's
Creek.
me.
Schitt's Creek
Yeah.
was like season 5. It
Yeah.
took off, and
Yeah.
it's like it's hard for people to grow and get to that. Be allowed to get that far. To allow people to discover it. So I think with Two Doors Down that is
Well, there
true.
was
Bill.
always a thing that sitcoms and BBC, or by series 3 it was becoming successful, and we'll commission something else.
Aye.
And you're like, no, you've actually got to give it a
needs to be a
longevity
trajectory.
and people to get to know them and all that. And from season 1 to now, I mean, Christine has grown amazingly, you know, in that sense that the writers went, oh, that's that, you know, she's funny, or that character. And it actually is a sitcom not about action, it's a sitcom about reaction. It's about someone saying something, and then how does the room react to a sort of outrageous or Christine coming in, you know, with the vouchers for a new, or the brochures for a new bathroom. And the best sitcoms for me have always been, the episode would be The Missing Sock.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's about something really simple. If you start going, how about we're all on the moon and we're all no. It's a living room,
Yeah.
and they work best. Nesbitt worked best in that living room. The Simpsons work best. Cheers works best in that bar. It's all right. You can take Frasier, Schitt's Creek. That motel set was where it all went really well. And so if you hit on that and go, oh, that's great. I get people all the time going, how are we knowing Christine's house any time? You know, that they're so
spin-off
invested
show,
in
you know, you
it
also
that they
need.
want to see a bit more in Christine's house. And there is actually a scene in the Christmas episode we've done that where I said the boys are to find stuff. There's a great bit where to send them for Christmas decorations or old things of mine, and I go in through the kitchen and they go, why? And I says, well, it's a washing I'm needing hung up. If you don't mind. So that also the familiarity that audiences get with characters, and some will be said and they'll be waiting on Christine's reaction or waiting on that, but she's become this monster, you know.
I thought you were going to say icon.
Oh, well, I remember somebody said to a friend of mine that they'd gone, oh, I love that, Elaine's so funny in that, and they'd gone, I can't watch it, she's such a horrible character. Because she's a nightmare.
Aye.
But do you find that, like, you know, she's a horrible character, but actually, like, it's just because she's very wry and she's got a lot of, you know, like that humour in there. Do you find characters that you would perceive as like horrible to get close to easy, or how do you embody characters that you think people might, you know, learn to love but not immediately be a warm or like friendly, fuzzy character?
Yeah, she's not friendly.
Do you find
and
that
fuzzy.
hard, or do you find that easy to get close to?
Actually, I probably do find it harder because Mary Nesbitt, I remember Ian Patterson saying about that after he saw what I did as Mary Nesbitt, he wrote her differently because I was warm. Mm-hmm. Although she was, you know, a bit of a hard ticket, as we say in Glasgow, but took no prisoners. She was warm. She was trying to hold her family together, living with this, you know, mad situation with that. And that her and Rab actually loved each other. So for me, there was a wee bit of dignity in her that was easier to hang on to. And Mary Nesbitt, I was in a play for today. He was in a comedy show, but I thought she had to be the linchpin. It wasn't about me getting gags. It was about the situation. It's situation comedy. So Christine, coming out that harshness of it, or that. I think it's because she doesn't have a man. We think our man might be buried out the back garden somewhere, but who knows? But one of those women that's a sort of entitled, and I'll tell you another thing, no filter, ideologically unsound, you would say, you know, that she will say things. But what is wonderful about that is that within the situation, she's the odd one out. You know, like there's a whole bit of when in one of the episodes where Ian and Gordon are going to their friends, their lesbian friend's wedding. And Christine says, you can do that now, can't you? And he says, yeah, well, good on you. And then I'm actually going to a wedding myself. And they say, are you? And she goes, I'm a real one, you know. So, but she's the one that's out of step with everybody else.
But see, that is because that is relatable as much as like people know a Christine or they know
Yes,
Ellen.
yeah,
Like, and that's
absolutely,
why, and that's what appeals to them. But I did want to ask you if you can pick your favourite Christine quote, if you can imagine it, because we spoke a bit before about on TikTok there became a viral sound of, do you know who does a lovely paracetamol?
A good paracetamol. Morrison.
That blew up on TikTok, and I was thinking, do you know that this is like people are miming this all over TikTok?
But because I'm old, I don't do TikTok or whatever. But I'm aware through Cameo and things like that when you do, the videos you do on the Cameo app.
Oh,
you
okay.
just apply anywhere it's quite easy to get.
Christmas presents.
Because I do it. Listen, I do loads. But what I do is I only agree to, because loads of people write you going, could you say happy birthday, blah, blah, blah. And I would forget and think, oh no, I've got, but I do it for charity. So the money I raise from that I'll put towards the prize at the college or or I'll go, right, that's going to breast cancer or that's going, and that makes me do them. I feel better at doing them. And but also I'm not on there. I'm not Tom Hanks going £10,000 a go or anything like that. But I've noticed on Cameo that people were asking me to do. Can you say, do you know who does a good paracetamol? Morrison. and it's the out the side of the mouth thing, which is what I love.
I think about that all the time since when we were filming, and I said something to you about, it was the way you asked me, like, do you want me to swear like this or do you want me to swear like that? And I said, oh well, that second way you did it, that was perfect. And you went, well, I think it's all about straight out the side of the mouth. You throw it away because it's so casual, and you like, because some people might read a swear word as a pure like exclamation big like statement, and actually to throw it away the way you did, I was like, that is exactly how I can describe it to people going forward if I want it to be so casual and part of your delivery. So
well, I think about swearing, I get really hacked off. I mean, there's times I'll go, she wouldn't swear there. And there's other times I go, she would swear there, and there's no swear word or whatever. And fortunately, Gregor and Simon would listen or disagree or whatever. But the way that she swears, the juxtaposition of this, well into middle age or older woman swearing like that is. There's just something quite funny about that you don't expect it to be there, but there's a way of I've noticed, particularly middle class actors, if they get a swear word, they have to go fucking, and they have to act the fucking and all that. And the thing about the wonderful thing about particularly working class Glaswegians is the side of the mouth. It's that there's a line that somebody reminded me of the other day. They put on, and it's Eric when we were doing a sort of quiz thing, a Mr. and Mrs. or something, and it was, what would you have liked to been as a your ambition when you were young? And Eric says, oh, do you know what I'd have loved to have been an astronaut. And of course Christine at the side of the mouth looks at me and goes, Christ, I'd never get off the fucking ground, because Eric's a bit retarded. But that you have to do it really quiet. You sort of
that's
watch
the power in it, as it being
so that, and he hears a wee bit of it and he's raging, but there's another way I could go, Christ, I would never get off the fucking. You do that to him, that's not. But it's that. Not off the fucking ground. Stupid.
I think it is hard to do, and again, Christine is such an amazing character because of all the subtlety. But I think it is hard in Scotland because most actors have the experience of acting on stage, and that's most of their work a lot of the time. Most of job and actors is they have stage work, and it's a different type of acting. And I think that sometimes it can be difficult to dial it down, and to be like and knowing the difference to act for camera and stage, and.
I think that was a fear.
Yeah.
fear of Simon and Gregor a wee bit, that when they brought me in as Christine, I was micro directed. I mean, like, and at one point, one of the camera crew said to me, I couldn't believe they were giving you notes like that. You know, it was like, and a couple of times I went home close to tears going,
Really?
I'm obviously shy.
Do you think that was because they were aware, obviously, of your background with other
Yes.
things? They were thought that you were maybe going to be too.
They were worried I was going to be too big,
Uh-huh.
and also there's a perception, and actually, if you watch Rhapsody Nesbitt, we're not over the top. If you watch it, there's a perception because it's funny. That we're shouting at the
that you'd
camera
be like,
and all
gag,
that.
gag,
City
gag,
Lights to a certain extent had much more of that Panto-esque, over the top sort of feel to it, which you know, a lot of people in it, but you know, we always wanted to pull it back a wee bit, but you're pushed. So it was a real learning curve that to accept that there was a perception that what you did as an actor was over the top. Or that you were, she does comedy, or she does working class comedy. So therefore you were going to be home on, it was all going to be that all the time, right? And I've never done that. You know, even in Panto, I don't do that. You're exaggerated and all of that. So I was very aware that there was a slight fear amongst them, and to the micro directing I was getting on lines. Could you see it this way? And so once I got it, I thought, all right, this is what we go here, and never to go. And there's a scene where I'm at the funeral in the first series, and I come back and I say to Simon Carlisle, who'd laughed, you know, and I said, Christine's coming back for the funeral, and of course moaning about the purvey, the purvey being, some of you may not know, but the tea after the funeral. You
I've
know,
never heard that word before.
Have you know? It's a real Glasgow thing. You go for
That
the
Catholic
purvey.
thing.
Yeah, you get
Looking
steak
at Lorenzo
pie.
saying, sorry, you'll understand, we won't.
Yeah, steak pie, mashed potato. And Dorothy Paul always told the story of Jewish peas, and everybody said, you always get the Jewish peas, and what it was actually was the waitresses coming around going, Jewish peas.
Like, do you wish?
Do you wish peas? But of course they go, Jewish peas, Jewish peas.
Quite Victorian sounding.
I
Do you
know,
wish
but,
peas?
but they would go round and folk would say, what was the purvey? Steak pie, mashed potato, Jewish peas. That's what it became. So a stupid gag. Anyway, but I had said to Simon, look, she's moaning about, you know, she does this thing coming out saying something like, I mean, did you see her sitting there with that? Couldn't wait to get the tin foil around the stuff to take away. I mean, that was maybe £3.40 a head tops. You know, she's calculated out and the sort of awfulness of that. But meanwhile, the drama of the funeral of someone she didn't really know that well. But she's got she's got a veil. I said, can the hat have a veil and all that? And of course, Simon went, yeah. And as I come out, obviously a couple of sherries, and Sharon's trying to get me up into the house, and I'm, abide with me. I start singing and all that. And so they loved it, but to take it down, there was a way of, I could have just been out the car. I mean, that was £3.40 tops, but beautiful hymns, beautiful. So just do it down and keep it down. And that's actually one of my favourite scenes in the house, because she's managed to get Beth to give her a couple of drinks and all that. And Alex Norton, the God that is Alex Norton, said to me, because I start singing the Old Rugged Cross, right? Or Christine does, on a hill far away. She's a couple of drinks, all that. I will cling to the old rugged cross. And they're all like, oh, here we go. And Alec and I sung, and exchange it someday for a crown. Like that, right? So Alec
Oh, I
went,
would love to get on set and start doing that.
well, Alec was sitting next to me and he went, as we're gabbing, they're setting up some, and Alec always makes me laugh, and he said, you should do the thing the Glasgow singers do. And I went, what? He says, you know that thing where they break up the word? And I went, what? And then I went, oh, I know. Well, I must have had to do 20 takes because I was pushing myself so much every time I came in. Because I would go, and exchange it someday for a crown. That you put the R on another word. Well, every time I went, for oh God, I move it all gone, the crew, everybody. So
It's
those
like you feel
are
like a
favourite
child
moments.
at school when you're told you're not allowed to laugh, and it's the most you can resist laughing in
Oh,
your
I
life.
love that feeling.
It's a brilliant feeling.
It's
But
the
then
best
then you look at the
feeling in
queue,
the world.
you look at the crew, you look at the camera, people going,
They're
fucking
raging.
hurry up.
If you include them in it and they get it. But
That's like us with Lorenzo. Maybe he can't get
exactly.
through one segment and he has to keep starting it again.
if you look, there's a blooper reel for Two Doors Down that's out there. There's a few of them, and most of it is me corpsing.
Yeah.
I love people who are genuinely funny and make you laugh. There's no better feeling in the world.
So unfortunately, that is the end of part 1 of our episode with the wonderful ELAINE C. Smith. But don't worry, part 2 is up early right now on our Patreon, so you can go and check that out. Also, there's a ton of bonus content on there, including extra episodes, loads of fun and exciting things, so go and check it out now.
Woo! And thanks again to Iola. Affordable specs that look expensive. Go check them out.
Thank you very much, Iola. You have been listening to Who Agrees with me, Paul Black.
And me, Kendra McPherson.
See you next time.
Bye.